is everything you need to know before buying Mario Kart World. While you're racing around in the different courses of Mario Kart World, you might now notice that there's dynamic weather effects, and these can drastically change how the courses are played. So for example, if someone uses the lightning item, that's going to cause rain to fall down on the track and make it slippery. Or the weather could impact the different waves that you're rushing around on in Wario's shipyard. This isn't something you would have seen in the rest of the series, so be prepared for differences in the traction and the atmosphere as you're driving around. Because now, instead of different courses taking place at preset times, like in Mario Kart 8, there's a dynamic day-night cycle as well, meaning no two times that you race through the map are ever going to look exactly the same. When you played Mario Kart on the Switch, you had to choose your character and then choose the different kart customization options. But now, that's completely gone on the Switch too, which, even though they're still unlocked by collecting different amounts of coins, they all have preset stats. But one thing you'll also want to pay attention to is that the stats read out differently depending on your character. So if you pick a heavy character like Wario, your kart's going to look a lot different than if you picked a lighter character. Now, this has nothing to do with the kart, but everything to do with the character, although it's all consolidated into the same stats. One of the biggest changes to the Mario Kart meta is the ability to do charge jumps. And what this means is that if you press and hold down the drift button while going straight, then that'll allow you to charge a jump off of the track and actually allow you to drive on walls and rails. And the reason this is so huge for the meta is that if you learn how to do this, then you can apply it to so many of the different shortcuts that you'll be using within races. And if you go and look at any of the world records that we're seeing on time trials, this technique is a staple. So you're gonna have to learn how to do this if you want to compete at a high VR. While this is the first $80 game for Nintendo, that only applies if you're buying the game separate from the console. Since if you can track down the Mario Kart World and Switch 2 bundle, then that effective price drops down from $80 down to $50, though it's not a physical version of the game, just a download code. Now, while the Switch 2 is capable of outputting a 4K signal, it actually turns out that this game runs at 1440p, which even at that 2K resolution is still a first for Nintendo, considering that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe ran at 1080p 60fps. While racing in single player, whether in the actual races or in free roam, you're able to press down on the D-pad and use the rewind feature, which allows players to briefly rewind to correct their mistakes. And while this is only allowed in single player, worth noting is that it is possible to do this inside of the actual time trials. And there's already been some channels who have used this technique to actually get a world record, considering that you rewind faster than you drive forwards. And whether or not Nintendo will leave that feature in, it's hard to say. For most of the Mario Kart series, we only had 8 players on the track. And then in Mario Kart 8, we saw it increase to 12, but now in Mario Kart World, we have 24 racers on the track at once, which not only means a lot more chaos going on in the middle of the pack, but it also means that certain items that affect a bunch of the players in front of you, like lightning, got a huge buff. And you can see as much when you watch a knockout tour. Being able to wipe out huge swaths of the competition that's all in front of you in the pack, it's a total game changer. And it can help you go from the lower 20s up into first place like that. In previous Mario Kart games, it was usually best practice to hold down the item button to keep the item behind you, so then if you were getting a red shell behind you, you could use that green shell or banana to tank the hit. And now as an ease of access for new players, and also to balance against the chaos of having up to 24 people on the track, these items now automatically trail behind you. Oh, and also worth noting is that if you're holding a bomb behind you, don't worry if you get hit, since while it might explode, you're going to be unharmed in the process. For the first time in Mario Kart, we now have an open world racing game that seamlessly connects every single track into the one world map. And while this is great for different player-made game modes such as hide and seek, it does leave some players feeling like there's a bit more to be desired, especially when it comes to the Grand Prix mode. Since now, when you're playing Grand Prix, instead of racing to 3 full laps on the track, the first 2 laps of the later tracks in the Grand Prix are about racing through the intermissions toward the new track, and then only featuring 1 full lap around the featured track. Which, while this adds more variety to Grand Prix, it does also mean that you're driving forward for a lot longer than you would have normally, which has led different technical players to lament this fact. With the addition of 12 extra characters on the track, Mario Kart has also added in a new mode just for that called Knockout Tour, where you have to drive across the map in a different kind of style, and every time that you hit a checkpoint, it'll drop out the bottom 4, which not only means that we're driving a lot of those intermissions that we saw from the Grand Prix, but it also makes it a total endurance race of trying to go from the back of the pack right up to the front. It's a lot of arcade style fun. It can also just be really punishing too. Don't be surprised if you get knocked from first right into getting eliminated like that. With the Switch 2, we have new social features like game chat that are now supported within the races. And so you're able to talk to your friends and also enable your webcam for real-time interactions with your friends during the races. And you can even see how this happens in different ways, such as if you get hit by a shell, it'll cause your icon to spin out. And if you don't have a USB camera to plug into the Switch 2, you don't have to buy their official one. Any USB camera seems to do the trick. This user even found out how to use your phone to do it. While proper anti-gravity has been removed in the way that it worked in Mario Kart 8, there are still a fair number of gravity-defying tracks in this game, most notably at Peach Stadium, where we can see the track curve and go upwards into the air like so. Granted, our tires aren't spinning horizontally like they did in Anti-Grav, but it's hard to say that's not what's at play here. In the last few Mario games, we've been able to drive underwater, but that's been switched out where instead we're able to drive in boating sections, where as soon as you drive onto the water, your cart develops this raft-like structure, and you'll be able to trick off the different waves when you're driving around. There's even whirlpools to find too. Unfortunately, unlike the variant costumes that we saw back in Mario Kart 8, as it is in Mario Kart World right now, every unlockable character costume takes up a slot in the roster. And while there is a sort button that helps you keep all of the characters' different costumes next to each other, there's no favorites tab and there's no way to stack them up, making it a lot more of a pain to go see the later ones. Unlocking the characters is kind of a mess too. Now, to get the different costumes, you're gonna have to go and try your luck playing that character and eating the different dash foods that you see littered onto the course. You can find these during the races or in free roam, and then eating different foods will give you different costumes for that character. And while this might seem random at first, it's actually more confusing than that, since certain food items can only give certain costumes to certain characters, which might mean that you'll have to go look up an Excel spreadsheet just to be able to figure out which goes to which costume, which is a little annoying, but it's not nearly as bad as trying to get some of the enemy-based characters, because a lot of these can only be obtained from the Kamek item, which is an item that someone from the back of the pack can use to turn everyone in front of them into a different enemy. And if it turns you into an enemy that you don't have, that unlocks the character for you, which means that you have to race in a whole bunch of races just hoping that someone turns you into the right thing with a Kamek. And you can't park at the back of the pack to use the Kamek item yourself, since that doesn't help you unlock it. It's a lot of trial and error. While on the surface, the game only features 30 traditional courses when compared to Mario Kart 8's base game of 48, because of all the different intermissions that we have between courses, Nintendo does argue that the actual number defined is closer to 200, but a lot of those are also driving in a straight line. So while there's a lot of racing content, whether you like the content is going to be left up to you. One of the things that you'll notice from the Kamek item is that it'll spawn a whole bunch of enemies onto the track. And those enemies aren't just found with this item, but you can also see them on the track in various places. Think the cows in Moo Moo Meadows, but now a whole bunch more. Like Goombas chasing after you, or different Hammer Bros throwing out items towards you. Which, while that might be more in line with the Mario world, some competitive players will probably miss the predictability of old obstacles. Ever since Nintendo released Mario Bros. Wonder, it seems like they've been trying to revamp a new art style. And that continues into this game, most notably with characters like Donkey Kong or Boo. And while I personally think a lot of them look great, especially when compared to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's models, it does definitely take some adjusting to get used to these new models, especially when we had the old ones for so long. The soundtrack for Mario Kart World is one of the most standout features of the game. And the reason for this is that it not only features new versions of classic songs from the Mario Kart series, but also a whole bunch of music from the Mario franchise as a whole. Everything from Jump Up Superstar to Yoshi Star Galaxy, which is one I'm particularly fond of. And you'll get to hear all these different tracks dynamically playing during free roam mode, or also during the intermission portions of the tracks in Grand Prix and Knockout. So far, it seems like the only main series Mario game that isn't represented on the soundtrack is New Super Mario Bros. 2. But with all the different coin items that we have to choose from, it seems like it's still finding its place somewhere. One of the ways to keep yourself busy in free roam mode is by doing all the different challenges that you can find over the place. And these include finding Peach medallions, lighting up different question block switch panels within the courses, and most notably, the P-Switch missions, which these will give you each a distinct mission based on the environment. And while this could be doing a shortcut, collecting blue coins, or even going through a makeshift race, don't expect to find any of the bosses that we saw in the DS entries mission mode. Battle mode returned to Mario Kart World, but it's missing some options, since now we only have Balloon Battle and Coin Runners, missing some of the other options like Renegade Roundup and Shine Thief. And where you'll find these battle mode courses take place is actually within different parts of the overworld map, like the classic big donut map from the past. That's actually integrated into the actual map, and you'll race over it in the different knockout tours, which is cool, but it feels less unique than racing on top of a GameCube. While many people seem to be finding 150cc a lot harder in Mario Kart World than it was in the past, one of the reasons for this rebalancing is that there's no 200cc mode in this game. However, there is a mirror mode. Just the way to unlock it is pretty confusing. So confusing, in fact, that if you ask different people, they'll each give you a different answer on how to do it. But from what it seems, the best way to go through doing it is to get gold on all of the Grand Prix cups on 150cc, then finish in the top 4 in all of the Knockout Tour cups on 150cc. Then, after you've done at least 10 of the P-Switch missions, 10 of the Peach medallions, and 10 of the light-up switches, then when you replay and win the Special Cup on 150cc, that should unlock a cutscene that gives you mirror mode. Pretty convoluted, but hard to say it's not cool that we're going back to things like schoolyard rumors to try to unlock this. One of the biggest competitive scene gripes for Mario Kart is that the game's item balancing promotes bagging, which is the practice of when you intentionally stay behind to get the better items, since that's what makes it a party game and less of a competitive option. And considering that the last two parts of the intermission races are generally less important than the last lap, it's hard to say those people aren't right in some way. When playing free roam and online multiplayer, the P-Switch missions aren't going to be available on the map, but you can still collect the Peach medallions and the light up switches. And currently, there's no option to play free roam in local multiplayer, which I think is a real shame. In the past, when we did online racing, we had the option to choose between global, national, or regional servers. But now that's all been removed, and the only option is global play. Online tournaments have also been removed from this game, and so the online play now exclusively features global lobbies with no preferences for rule sets, and you'll have to stick to friend lobbies for the customization. By clearing the different challenges in free roam mode, as well as performing a certain amount of tricks and collecting different coins, will all reward the player with stickers. And you can choose one sticker to appear on the vehicle and on your online profile. But the fact we can't position where the stickers are placed on the car and get something that's more akin to the DS kind of emblem is a big shame. If you don't want to play the game just online, but instead connect over a local area network, then LAN play does exist, but the way that you get it is pretty confusing. And the way to do it is to hold both L and R bumpers, and then click the left joystick, which will turn the wireless play option into the LAN option. I don't know why it's not just accessible from the main thing, but at least you know how to find it. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?